Frankly, this should be done in like 3 weeks, but we're doing it all in like 2 hours. Okay. So trying to go, that's why I figured to cover it with you slowly. All right. Go. So these are all the slides you need to know for the nervous system, part 1. Okay. So these are neurons. Specifically, they're motor neurons. You have 2 motor neurons here. You can see this is the soma, and this is the nucleus. These are neuroglia, or glial cells. They're basically found outside the neuron. They tend to nourish and they support the neurons. And the processes are things that stick out. Remember, from bones? So, like, you would have like a long axon, and you have these little dendrites. Okay. Next slide. Okay, same thing. Motor neuron, soma, nucleus, axon. These are the nuclei of the glial cells, or neuroglia, or neuroglial cells. They'll call them that. These are the dendrites. And the little, like, splotches here are the Nissl bodies, N-I-S-S-L. Next slide. Okay. These are what the Nissl bodies look like. So go back to the left slide for a second. Okay. So these little things, go ahead next, is basically these things. Those are the Nissl bodies. That's the title of the slide. So you should know that this thing is a Nissl body, that really big thing. Okay? Sure. The dark spots are the nuclei. Make sure I get all this covered. And that's good enough. Okay, next slide. Now, there are different types of glial cells. This one is called an astrocyte. Astro means star. So it looks like a star, and it's got these processes that grab on, grabs on, like these foot processes that grab on to this blood vessel. So if I were you, I would highlight this red to remind yourself it's a blood vessel. And astrocytes wrap around the blood vessels to create the blood-brain barrier so that poisons don't go from the blood into your brain. Well, some of them. Some can get through, like alcohol, right? Again, these are astrocytes. This is nice because it's in red now. And this is your blood vessel. This is the astrocyte, so you can see the cell body with the nucleus, and these are the processes. Hold on, let me make sure I got everything. That's all you need to know for that. Okay, next. Okay, this is called pyramidal cell, so think of pyramid, and then add AL on the end of it. This is a pyramidal cell. Some people call it pyramidal neuron. So you have, this is the axon, these are the dendrites, and this is the cell body. You can't see the nucleus because it's too dark a picture. Okay, next slide. Okay, so this is a nerve. So this is called nerve cross-section. And remember, a nerve has a whole bunch of neurons. I mean, look, there are hundreds of them, and they're all coming out at you, right? So this right here is a neuron. In fact, this is an axon. What is the definition of a nerve? A nerve is a group of axons. So these are a whole bunch of, imagine I had like 50 pencils right here, and they're all coming out at you. So those are all axons. So this whole thing is a nerve, cross-section, and the outer layer here, which is connective tissue section, and the outer layer here, which is connective tissue, that gray thing on your motor neuron, this gray thing right here, is the endoneurium. That's it right here. I'm going to do it like that. Endoneurium, right there. This part here, some of this is the myelin sheath, and there is myelin sheath around the other axons too, but we're calling this myelin sheath. Okay, next slide. Okay, this is called microglia, or microglial cell. So it's one of the glial cells, and obviously this is the cell body here, and these are the processes. God bless you. That's all you need to know for that. Okay, next one. Okay, those are nerve fibers. So this is a nerve, and basically they teased out the nerve. It looks like a knot in your hair, right? So these are just teased nerve fibers. That's all you need to know for that. Next. Okay. Imagine, right, you see this, okay? So you have a neuron here, okay? And this, see this a part that's the Schwann cell that makes the myelin sheath. There it is right there, and there it is. So this is the axon right here. So the axon lemma would be right on the outside of it. This is the neurolemma going around the neuron, and this is the actual myelin sheath. And so the node of Ranvier would be on the edges. Okay? So hold on. Make sure I'm all covered. Yes. Okay, go ahead, next slide. So that's a big shot of it. Go back to the left. So this is what we're going to look at. Go to the right. And now you can see this much clearer. So here is the neuron, right here. This is the neuron. Right, so you're looking at this part here. And you can see that this is the axon, and just the edge would be the axolemma. The edge of here would be the neurolemma. And this is the myelin sheath, which is made up of a Schwann cell. Okay, and that's what gives the myelination. The other thing is right here, where there is no myelin, that's the node of Ranvier. Love this picture. Go ahead, next slide. Okay, same thing, node of Ranvier. That's what you should know. Okay, go ahead, next. Okay, so this is called sympathetic ganglion. So these are sympathetic ganglion. Sympathetic, we're talking about the part that's fight or flight as opposed to parasympathetic. And the ganglion is a group of cell bodies outside the CNS. So you have sympathetic ganglia, like here, okay? And those are the cell bodies. That's all you need to know. Cell bodies and sympathetic ganglia. That's all you need to know for this one. Okay, next slide. This is pretty cool. This is the cerebellum. And each one of these is called a folium. So together they're called folia. But you can see like the gyrus and the sulci, okay? You can also see the gray matter on the edge in the cortex, and then the white matter is in the middle, okay? So this is cerebellum. It is not cerebrum. Next slide. It's just really close. Go left and right again one more time. So we're looking at one. Go ahead. Really close up, okay? So this is a folium. This is the cerebellum. Okay, and basically this is the gray matter, and then the white matter would be in here. Okay, go to the next slide. Okay, now it's really close up. So you need to know a few parts of this. This is one folium in the cerebellum. We're going to look at one folium in the cerebellum. Go to the right. Okay, we get really close up. Go left and right one more time. Get really close up. Okay, okay. So what we're going to look is there are 2 layers and some cells in between. Okay, so here's one layer, here's another layer, and then there are cells in here. These cells right here are called Purkinje cells, the ones that we talked about when we deal with the heart. Okay, Purkinje cells. This looks like you have all granules, so we call it the granular layer. How lovely, right? And this is the molecular layer. Molecular layer, granular layer, Purkinje cells of one folium in the cerebellum. Okay, next slide. This one is the hypothalamus, and you have to try to come up with little things to remember. I don't know. What does this look like to you? I'm trying to think. Anything you can come up with may be able to help you. The hypothalamus has neurons that secrete hormones. Okay, so we call these cells here neurosecretory cells. They're neurons that secrete hormones. And all the stuff in the back are just fibers in the background. Okay, so this is hypothalamus. Okay, next slide. Okay, this is slide number 19, so we're getting close. This is the cerebral cortex. I mean, to you it doesn't look like anything, okay? But you want to think about asking a 5-year-old, what does this look like, okay? Now, right here, imagine you're looking from space, and you go, I'm looking at Egypt. Oh my God, there's a pyramid right there. So think of that as pyramidal neuron, okay? So this is the cerebral cortex, and pretend you're looking from outer space, and you're going to Egypt, and you're like, ah, I see a pyramidal cell. I see a pyramid right here. You know, and then these are all the little tourists that are going to go visit it. Think of it that way, anything that works for you, okay? Okay, next slide. Okay, so this is the spinal cord. Remember, here's the capital H, okay, which is the gray matter, because it's the opposite from the brain. So here we have white matter. We look for the middle, that's the center, so that's the central canal. This is the gray commissure, which is the bridge. These are the gray horns, and this is the dorsal or posterior gray horn, lateral gray horn, and this is the anterior or ventral gray horn. So this is the posterior white columns, lateral white columns, anterior white columns. So maybe use ventral and dorsal, that's okay. Remember, this is the anterior median fissure, and this is the posterior median sulcus. Remember, PMS is in the back. Okay? The other thing you should remember is, sorry, bear with me. This here is the dorsal root ganglion, like that butt cheek, and it comes up from there. So it's going to send sensory neurons up to there. Okay. Can you go to the next slide? The exact same thing. A little easier to see, except for that. That's just the ink splotch. Okay, so ignore that. Central canal, gray commissure, lateral, here, lateral, anterior, and posterior gray horns. These are the anterior, lateral, and posterior columns, white columns. Next slide. So again, here's the central sulcus, gray commissure, posterior gray horns, lateral. I can't see the anterior. So this is the back. So here is the posterior median sulcus. Unfortunately, it's like opened up a little too much, but that's okay. You can still see. PMS, posterior median sulcus. Okay, go ahead, next slide. This is why I don't want you to write this stuff down, right? Okay, this is the exact same thing. It's exactly the same thing, but I like the other ones a little bit better. Next slide. Okay. This you should kind of remember a little bit from A&P1. These are skeletal muscle fibers. After the brain sends messages to the spinal cord, send messages down the nerves, down to the very last neuron, it's going to make a junction with the muscle. Right here, do you remember these? Synaptic end bulbs or axon terminals or bouton, right? And then it's going to connect onto here at a neuromuscular junction. That's the name of this slide, neuromuscular junction. Remember those pink things going, or purple things going up and down? Those are skeletal muscle fibers. And then, again, you can, this is like right here. This is like E.T.'s hand reaching and grabbing onto this big bar, okay? So this is the synaptic end bulb, and this is the terminal dendrite right there, okay? And this long thing here is the axon. Oh, sorry, not that. This long thing here is the axon. Thank you. This is the neuromuscular junction. Again, here's E.T.'s hand. This is synaptic end bulb or axon terminal. This is the terminal dendrite, and this is the skeletal muscle fiber. Oh my God, you can even see the striation. I'm not going to make you know A band and I band and all that kind of stuff. Okay? You can stop.